Card King, here I come. Hello, sports fans, sports collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490 AM.com, your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. And we are awaiting a call from a guest. We'll see if he calls in. If not, we'll talk about sports cards. So next week in Maine, big convention going on. Is about 16, 17 celebrity guests on hand. And yours truly, the Card King, will be at the show. It's called the Northeast Sports Card Expo, biggest card show in Maine. And the dates are September 23rd and 24th of next week. And if you want to find out more about this, you can go and Google Northeast Sports Card Expo. I believe there's going to be about 16 celebrity guests. One of our guests who appeared on this show a couple of years ago, Greg the Hammer Valentine, I was told will be on hand. So it'll be nice to see the Hammer himself, and also some other hockey stars and sports personalities. Biggest card show scheduled to come up next weekend in Maine, and the Card King Brian Catquet will be set up there with a bunch of 1950s through 1970s vintage baseball cards. I'll have a table on hand, bringing some of my vintage cards to show the public, and hopefully make a little money, and hopefully it'll be a good turnout, which I expect it to be. I know the same promoters who are hosting this show also held a few months ago, which was one of my best shows, at the Marriott in Boston, Quincy, and the same promoters are holding this event, and the Quincy turnout was extraordinary. I did very well. There was a lot of fans on hand. Also, wrestling legend Tito Santana, who I got to meet at that Quincy, Massachusetts show. From what I understand, Tito Santana will also be in Maine signing autographs. So you have Greg the Hammer Valentine in Maine. Tito Santana, another WWF championship wrestler, will be there. So same promoters, like I said, who held the spectacle event in Massachusetts a few months ago. Is expecting a good turnout this weekend. And, like I said, vintage baseball cards in this business has always exceeded expectations. If you're comparing it to the modern cards, for me, I get asked a lot, and I always get emails from collectors all over the country looking to sell their modern baseball cards. And, like I said in the past, when I first started this program, every collector, every fan out there needs to collect what they enjoy. But, my enjoyment is the vintage and the historical baseball cards. I have a passion for the history of the game. So that's the cards that I deal in. That's the cards that I buy. Those are the collections that I go after. I never really focused on the modern baseball cards or the modern sports cards, even when I was a youngster. It just, never appealed to me. Like I said, I'm more of a purist of the sport. So I like the history of the game, and, and the vintage baseball cards is what really gets me excited and really gets me passionate about this business. So for everyone emailing me or stopping by the show next week in Maine, and they have collections to sell, I'm only purchasing pre-1979 sports cards. I'll buy it all, from baseball to football to basketball, all the major sports, but it's got to be pre-1979. I know on my Twitter feed, there are collectors or fans of this program that email me periodically looking to sell cards from 1985, 1986. And yes, there are valuable cards in the 1985 series. For example, that's the year of Kirby Puckett. And, Kirby Puckett, a great ball player. That's his rookie card. That's his rookie year. Also, Brett Saberhagen. Also, that's his rookie year, 85. Clemens is also in that series, in that set. That's Clemens' rookie year. So, 85, there are famous baseball players in that set, but it's not really the cards that, get my adrenaline running. So, but, you should always collect what appeals to you, no matter if that's even the modern day cards, cards from the 2000s era. A lot of those cards are, as I said it here before, are, generating high prices. But again, it has to be graded. And those cards, the modern day cards, are generating high prices in today's market because the cards need to be graded. You have to send it in, and the grading companies charge a fee to grade that type of card, or those cards of today. And if it comes back a gem mint number 10, and of course if today's cards, the modern cards, have an autograph signature of the ball player, and the condition comes back a gem mint 10, and the ball player is a popular figure, then yeah, you're going to generate a lot of money, and sometimes more money than the vintage baseball cards. But you have to collect what really, really appeals to you as a collector, whether it's that, like I said, whether it's the modern cards, or even the non-sports cards. I tell you, I delve into non-sports. I was at a flea market in Connecticut a couple of weeks ago, and I was just walking around the flea market, and I found a box, even the non-sports. I found a box from a collector who dealt in video games, and the collector told me, he was actually a vendor setting up at this flea market in Connecticut, and the vendor told me he wanted to get out of the card business. So I would say he had about 500 non-sports cards, all from the decades of the 70s and 80s. And non-sports cards are becoming very popular, especially the video game non-sports cards. It is amazing for people listening to this program that are just casual listeners of the program and not really collectors, but just like to tune in. It is amazing how many millions of cards were produced throughout the decades. And every major company at one time issued trading cards to promote their product. So in that box that I was able to purchase at this flea market, it was a non-sports box of about 500 or so cards from the 1970s and 1980s. I found, if you remember the Donkey Kong video game from Atari, there was a stack of Donkey Kong video game cards, which I never even knew existed because I'm more of a sports card expert. But I found it interesting. Donkey Kong is American pop culture. Video games are very popular. So I said, what the heck? I'll put some of the cards up online. I started putting some of the cards up on eBay that came from that collection, that box. And I put some on my Facebook page as well. And I couldn't believe some of the prices these Donkey Kong cards were generating. They were produced by Atari back in 1983, I believe the year was. 83 was the year of the cards that were in that box. And some of these cards, I mean, there was a stack. I would say there was about 20 to 25 Donkey Kong cards. And those cards were issued where it was a game card. They were game cards, and you had to scratch them off. However, the 25 cards that I purchased in that collection at the flea market, the Donkey Kong cards were unscratched. And, I never knew they existed. I said, what the heck? I put them up online. I put them up on eBay. There was about 23, 25 Donkey Kong cards. And some of them were generating from $15 to $30. $15 to $30 each for unscratched Donkey Kong cards. I could not believe it. I couldn't believe my eyes. I mean, all of them sold. Just on that, you got to remember, like I mentioned, I purchased about 500 non-sports cards. I won't mention the price here, but I made the profit. I doubled on just those Donkey Kong cards, and I'm still sitting on 400 and something cards left. So that goes to show you that even the non-sports of video game cards are extremely popular among collectors. And, that's something that I have to focus my attention on moving forward. When I go to these conventions, I got to start looking at the early 1980s non-sports cards, especially these video game cards. And I'm going to tell you, I also, in that collection, there was a few sports cards scattered through the box of non-sports cards, and I knew nothing about this because, like, again, as you know me, people that know me in the business, I'm a sports guy, a sports baseball guy, a vintage sports baseball card guy. But in that box, there were cards called laser print, and I don't know how many of you remember these type of cards. And they were issued in 1982 by the series is called Tough Wheels Laser Print Trading Cards, issued in 1982. And when I purchased the box, these cards, they feature racing car drivers and, automotive racing cars by NASCAR. So one of the collectors who I showed these cards to told me that the 1982 Tough Wheel laser print trading cards are considered the first racing car cards issued. So that was another great find in that box. So if for those listening, if I would Google Tough Wheels laser print trading cards. There's 24 cards to a set, and they were issued with, if you remember those Matchbox cars, these cards were issued with the racing car in the package, and there's 24 cards to a set. This box that I purchased, I would say, had about 65 assorted of these Tough Wheels laser print cards. So I was able to put together, go through these cards, put together a 24 card set. There was a lot of duplicates, okay? So a 24 card set recently sold on eBay from what I purchased for $300. $300 for 24 cards. And that's another series that I was totally shocked about. And I was told that those are the first racing cars that were issued in volume. And then in the 1990s, they were issued in bulk. So that's another series to really go after. It's called the Tough Wheels 1982 Laser Print Trading Cards, 24 card racing car set. I recently sold a set for $300. So please keep your eyes on those cards when you see them, because I sold a complete set, and believe me, they weren't in mint condition. I sold a complete set for $300, and I still have a bunch of duplicates, which I'm putting online periodically, and they're going individually for me. And after having conversations with racing car collectors, they told me that those were the first major cards issued by, I guess, a racing car company, or, NASCAR. The first photos that NASCAR put out in trading cards. That's why they're so popular. So please keep an eye on those for collectors that just enjoy sports but don't really enjoy collecting baseball cards. Racing cards are extremely popular at this time. And another interesting find that I came up with at this flea market was there was a 1971 baseball program. It was a game by the Pirates, and it had a very, very light signature on the front cover, and the signature was of Roberto Clemente. Now, Roberto Clemente autographs are extremely scarce because, we all know he died young, and his autographs are extremely scarce and very valuable. So I was able to obtain a program from 1971, and it had a very light signature of Clemente on the front cover. I mean, it was so light, it was very, very hard to tell. So what I did was, as soon as this is a good example of what I've said in the past, that there's a lot of deals to be found at flea markets, but you got to be very alert and keep your eyes open. And this is why the vintage really attracts me, because the vintage, I mean, it's the creme de la creme. So you have to be very alert when you're looking at cards and looking at programs, and you should always the first step, and if you see a baseball program, the first step that you should take is to, before purchasing the program, is to go through the program page by page, because some of those early sports programs, the fan at the time could have gotten some of the pages autographed by the players. So you have to go and browse before you buy a program. You should look page by page, back in front of each page of a sports program, of, in this case, a baseball program, to see if a signature of a home player of that team is on the program. And that's what I did. It was a 1971 Pirate program. I went through the pages, and it was again very hard to see, very hard to detect, but automatically I knew 71 Clemente was on the team. So the first thing I was looking for was, I was hoping there was a Clemente signature, and there it was. There was a Clemente signature in the back page of the front cover. It's one of my, I would say, in all my years in doing this, is one of my proudest finds, because Clemente's signature in general is extremely scarce, and to find it at a flea market in a box just laying there, for me it was a tremendous find. And I won't even tell you how much I paid for it, but I can tell you this: I paid less than $10. And Clemente signatures, I tell you, they can go, depending on how clear the signature is on a Clemente on a Clemente penmanship signature, they can go anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000. This signature was extremely light, hard to detect, but I looked at it very thoroughly and carefully, and I saw that kind of scribble R that Clemente, the way Clemente signs, and I said, "Oh my God, this is a Clemente signature." So I was able to get it at a price less than $10. Okay. Now what I did was I submitted a buyer. I submitted the item for an appraisal, and another buyer heard that I made this purchase. So the buyer contacted me, and we struck a deal, and he purchased the item from me. And from what I understand, the next step is to get it authenticated. So I knew it was an original autograph. I also looked at the scorecard. The scorecard was scored. Clemente was on the roster. So I had a 95% feeling it was a legitimate Clemente autograph. So this buyer contacted me. We struck a deal. We negotiated. I sold the program to him. He took the program to an authentication company who's located in Florida. They were set up at a show in Westchester County a few weeks ago. It was called the East Coast National. in Westchester County at the Westchester County Convention Center. He showed them the program, and they agreed that it's an authentic signature. So the buyer contacted me. He thanked me. I thanked him for his purchase, and there it is. I found for less than $10. I'll tell you this, it was less than $5. For less than $5 at a flea market in a box full of just paper material, publications thrown in there. There was a 1971 pirate program with a Clemente signature on it. Again, it was very light. The first step to do is go through the pages. Look to see if there's autographs of Hall of Famers. If you find an autograph of a Hall of Famer, go to the scorecard. See if it's scored. See if that player played that day, that game. And chances are you will hit a jackpot. A lot of deals to be made in flea markets. I've been very successful the last month going to a Connecticut flea market, and they're still out there. I mean, if people listening on the West Coast, I'm sure you have, good climate still. There must be outdoor flea markets. This is I would go and scavenger hunt for these, sports memorabilia finds because they're out there. Some people don't know, or some people that are vendors at these flea markets, they buy collections, they buy estates, they buy out homes, and some of this material is just stored in the houses that they buy out, and they need to sell it. So they go to flea markets and they looking to make a sale. They become vendors, and there it is. There's a lot of tremendous deals to be made still in flea markets. So that's been my adventure the last 3 to 4 weeks, hitting the flea markets, purchasing the 1970s through 1980s non-sports collections, the Donkey Kong cards from the early 80s, extremely hot, the vintage programs. Going to flea markets, looking for vintage programs. Again, you find a vintage sports program, go through the pages, make sure, maybe you can find an autograph of a player who played that game. You'll have you'll hit a jackpot. And also setting up at these card shows for the listeners listening. The Card King is always buying pre-1978 vintage sports cards in all condition. Again, collect what appeals to you. If you like the 1985 material, the 1986 material that so many collectors email me on, they have complete sets of 86, 85, 86, 87, 88. I personally don't buy them, but there is, so many fans out there that grew up in that generation that remember the ball players who played during the late 80s that do purchase them. And if that's what appeals to you, then go after it. But strictly speaking, what generates this business and what always generates news in this industry is always the big names like Mantle, Honus Wagner. Those are vintage ball players. They always generate the big revenue. They always get the newsworthy reports. And that's where the money is when you're looking to do this full time, in my opinion. Vintage baseball cards, vintage sports cards in general is where the money can be made to do this on a continual basis, because the new cards, you have to go out. First of all, you have to get them graded. There's a charge to get each card graded, and then you got to get the autograph, because a lot of these new cards, they're generating high prices with these autograph signatures on the cards. So the thing is that if you do find them, you have to go out, get the card graded. Hopefully it comes back a gem mint. If it comes back a gem mint, then you got to get the autograph graded as well, and there's fees set in place which really cuts or can cut in your profit margin. So, and that's the way it is. But that's the way the business is going. Graded material, and the new generation of collectors, which I am noticing and which I am seeing at the flea markets and doing these conventions. The new generation of collectors that are 20, 25 years younger than I am. They're going after these modern day players and these autographs and these patches, and they are in tune with the grading companies. They're sending these modern cards in bulk to the grading companies, and they're dishing out a lot of money to get these cards graded. And they're anticipating a gem mint 10, and if it comes back a gem mint 10, yes, they're going to make money on it, but they also have to dish out a lot of money getting the cards graded through these grading companies like I just mentioned. But the new generation of collectors, they enjoy the modern day cards, and that's fine. There is a lot of money to be made, and that's fine. But for those of you who email me looking to sell their collections, please stop by in Maine next week, the 23rd and 24th, with your pre-1979 sports cards. We'll see you next week. Happy collecting to all.